So in this video, we're going to talk about how to get rid of your massive debts, no matter how much you owe, no matter how much you make, even if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So hey guys, my name is Rick. I used to be this 13-year-old poor kid in LA, single parented. I eventually got my stuff together. However, before I accomplished this, I was actually $60,000 in debt. And I was able to manage to clear this fast, and I'm going to share with you a secret at the end of the video about how clearing your debts can actually set you up in the future for success. So let's get right into it. So have you been making minimum payments? Do you feel like your monthly payments are overwhelming? And do you have maxed out credit cards and you're struggling to pay for even basic living expenses? And maybe even feel like you'll never be able to pay off your debts. So what if I told you you could be paying off your debts the wrong way? What? So in this video, we're going to talk about the 6 simple steps that I use to clear $60,000 of debt while working full-time with a family of 4. Now, did you know that the average household has about $8,000 of credit card debt? That amounts to about $1,000 to $1,500 of interest payments per year. That's free money that could have been yours, but now you're giving it to the bank for no reason. So without further ado, here are the 6 steps to clearing massive debts, even if you have no extra income. Now, the first step and the last step are the most important and also the most overlooked. Debt can be debilitating, and it definitely can affect you physically and mentally. So because of all these negative feelings associated with debt, this leads us to the first step of the system. So personally, I have this problem as well. I knew debt was piling up on my credit cards. I had bills to pay here left and right because I was raised by a single parent who was struggling financially and with a lot of debt. And this basically brought up a lot of childhood trauma. So to actually face my financial situation, it actually took a lot of courage. Because to face your debts and accept them as a problem means that we're kind of admitting that it was our mistake, that we messed up. The funny thing is, I even convinced myself that I was not good with money because it was inherited from my single parent. So if there was a bill to pay or something has to do with money, I ignore it. If there was a payment that was in question, I delay those too. So I'd make everything else more important than my finances. And I would even delay improving my income. So the first step is the most critical. Everything that has to do with money or related to money comes first. Okay, great. So I started facing my finances, but the moment I started facing my finances, I realized there's a lot that I don't know. Okay, so remember you were a kid and you played a new video game? What's the first thing we do before we start playing the game? It's to figure out the rules of the game. So step number 2 is understanding the rules of the debt game. See, debt has been around for centuries, and because it's so complicated and so complex, there's a lot of traps. And every trap, there's a rule that you have to follow in order not to fall for these traps. Because without understanding the 3 critical rules about the debt game, which mostly has to do with psychology, you'll very easily fall back to your old ways. So the first rule, let's look at how we're brought up. Basically, when we were kids, we've always been compared to other people, whether or not we had better grades or went to a better school. Because of all these comparisons, we're always afraid of missing out and not living up to other people's standards. I know this is part of our survival mechanism, but fear of missing out is the first trap. So the first rule is, don't have fear of missing out. We don't need to buy things to impress people. These people have no relevance in our lives. Try to think about this. No one is worth impressing if you have to take on the burden of massive debts. Now, the second rule is even worse than the first rule because now we have marketers. And with centuries of marketing research, they know how we think and what we think before we buy. So since the beginning of time, humans have always been in groups of 40 people or less. And we don't want to ruin our reputation. So if we promise we're going to do something, most likely we're going to try to keep that promise to keep our reputations. Now, I don't know about you, but can you see how awful this can be? Because this is a great setup for making us easy targets for making promises. If a store knows that today we're going to keep our promise, then it's perfectly fine for them to just say, go ahead and take this product home and then give me the money later on. This is what's called credit. So the second rule is very simple. Don't fall for easy credit. Don't buy stuff on credit cards if you don't have money. Credit cards are only a medium of convenience. And remember why you got the credit card in the first place. It's probably for all the other benefits and perks that the credit cards give you. So make sure you have money set aside so you have these perks, but at the same time, it's not making you buy stuff that you don't have money to pay for later on. Now, the third and last rule should have been taught to us before we turned to the age of 18. See, the first time I got into my university and I walked along the main street of the college, there were kiosks left and right asking people to join clubs. Now, between each kiosks were different banks giving out credit cards to students freshman year with no jobs. How are we able to pay off these credit cards? But they don't mind. They want us to have the credit cards first. This is because banks make an insane amount of money from credit cards. And these credit cards, they hook you in by giving you all these extra perks, mileage for traveling, they give you free things. And we all think this is great. I'm gonna get a credit card, I'm starting college, I'm gonna start building my credit. At the same time, I'm gonna get all these perks. So building your credit and also getting these perks, these are both good things. They're both benefits, but however, humans are not machines. We are bad at remembering and counting, writing down our expenditures. Especially nowadays with the ease of payments, electronic payments, it makes us easy targets for forgetting what we bought throughout the month. So at the end of the month when the bill comes, we're like, oh my gosh, this is what I spent. It's very, very easy for them to just send us instant notification of what our current balance is at the time that we purchased a new thing. And they'll send you a text or send you an email. However, this would not be in their best interest. Why? Because they want to get interest from you. This is how they really make money. They're hoping by human nature, because we're so forgetful, that eventually you'll accrue up a large sum and you can't pay it off in one payment. So this naturally leads us to the third rule, which is best explained by Einstein. Compound interest is the 8th greatest wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. So the most important part of the sentence is the last part. He who doesn't understand compound interest has to pay it. So let me expand on this. Simply put, a credit card company or a credit card is basically a lending institution. It is lending you money right now so you can buy something conveniently so you don't have to bring cash with you. However, you have 30 days to pay back whatever you're using, this lended money. If you don't pay it back within these 30 days, then your interests start to come. This is where you have to pay money for them lending you money so you can buy whatever you needed to buy. And their interest rates are actually one of the highest interest rates of all types of loans. Home loans, mortgage loans, credit cards justify this because there is no collateral. They can't take something from you if you don't pay them back. There's no collateral. Like if you don't pay your mortgage, they'll take your house. You don't pay your car payments, they'll pay back your car. Because they can't do that, so they charge you a high amount of interest rate. Some go from 20% up to 30% interest rates. So I have to put emphasis on this. If you had $10,000 of debt at 20% interest rates, if you were only paying minimum payments, it would take 20 years for you to pay off $10,000 in credit card debts. If you had 30% interest rate, it would take you 30 years. Now, this is the tricky part. If today you were unable to pay off your minimum payments, the minimum payments that were outstanding or the part that you didn't pay off would be added back onto your principal, which is whatever amount that you owed, in this case, $10,000. So if your minimum payment was $100, next month would be $10,100. Now you got to pay interest on that new amount, the $10,100, instead of the old amount of $10,000. This is called compound interest. If you were to miss your minimum payments and to be added onto the $10,000 originally, this would cause you to have a payment plan of more than 30 years, if not have infinite payments. So this is why the third rule is the one you should try your best to never break. And when you have credit card balances, pay them off as soon as possible. So now that we understand the rules of the game, it's logical for us to move on to the next step, which is step number 3. So step number 3 is actually pretty straightforward. You're going to have all sorts of bills every month, and you've been paying off all these bills every month. But actually, you have to know what is different from your bills. Some bills are not as important as other bills. So in this case, your debts from your credit cards are different from, let's say, your water bill or your electric bill, or maybe your car payments, or maybe your house payments. Why? Because the interest rates are different. And again, like before we said about compound interest, you want to attack these first. So separate these bills first. These bills are not the same as your other bills. So now gather all your credit card bills, the bills that you owe, and we're going to list them out. There's a reason for this, because later on we're going to figure out which strategy you're going to apply. Okay, so here's what you want to do. You want to first list out the balances, and then you want to list out the interest rates, and then the minimum payments for each. You can use a spreadsheet or a pen and paper. I usually use a pen and paper. List out amounts from the smallest to largest, and then you want to write down next to it all the interest rates. After this, you want to write down your income after your taxes. Now finally, make a linear list from the top to the bottom of all your expenses you can think of. If you can include the yearly expenses as well, like things you pay for once a year, for example, subscriptions or insurance payments or taxes for your income, or even taxes for your house if you own a house. So mine goes something like this: the rent and mortgage, transportation, fuel and car payments, taxes, So yearly divided by 12 months. The insurance also divided by 12 months. Your living expenses, including your food, eating out, your clothes, maybe living necessities. And then your savings. If you can, you should still save for emergencies. Preferably, you're aiming for about $1,000 to begin with, and you want to increase it to hopefully about $10,000. Mainly cash in your checking account. Don't touch it because it's for an emergency. So now with this, you'll have an idea of where you're at, your income versus your costs. Knowing this will help you decide which strategy to apply next. Okay, so here we have your income, and here we have our debts, and then here we have all of our expenses. Now we're going to minus all of our debts and our expenses from our income to see if we have leftover cash. Now, whether or not you have leftover cash, which people like to call cash flow, or if you don't have leftover cash, now we can decide which strategy we want to apply. So here are the 3 strategies. So I've already done this, but you can pause the video right now and start doing a rough idea of what your income, your expenses, and also your debts are. So there are 3 outcomes that you can have. 1, you could have extra cash flow. Then you can apply all 3 methods below. Now, if you are number 2, month to month, which is most people, about 80 or 90% of the people are actually living paycheck to paycheck, then you have 2 options. You either go option A, first make a lifestyle change so you have extra cash flow to pay off your payments and your debts, or B, you can keep your current lifestyle and just apply the 3rd method. Now, number 3, you could be also in the negative. If you are in the negative, then you need to first make a huge, major lifestyle change or take on a side hustle. You need to have extra income. Because remember how we talked about, if you're negative, this means you're going to have compound interest and you will be paying for it because you don't understand it. So it could be infinite debt, right? You could be paying for plus 30 years minimum payments because you're never able to pay these off. Now, you can easily make some extra income doing Uber, making deliveries, or maybe doing some side hustles, maybe making an extra $200 per month while cutting down on your lifestyle expenses. So we'll get into that later. So great, now you've done, I think, maybe the hardest part of dealing with your finances, which is knowing your numbers. So that was step number 3. Getting to know your numbers. So now we're on to the next step, which is choosing the right payoff strategy. There are actually 3 strategies to paying off your debt. The first one, if you're motivated by small wins, you want to use the snowball method. Now, if you want to save money, if you're totally focused on saving money and you're really disciplined, you want to use the avalanche method. And today, if you are paycheck to paycheck, and you can live paycheck to paycheck, you're not in the negatives, then you want to use the debt recycling method. So the debt snowball method is actually pretty popular. You search it on YouTube, a lot of people will be talking about this. I'm just going to give you a simple rundown. Debt snowball method is basically a motivational method to paying off your debts. You don't care about interest rates. What you care about is the amount of debt. Now remember, we listed out the amounts already in step 3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the lowest amount of debt. It could have the least amount of interest rate. I don't care. What I care about is the lowest amount of debt. I want to first pay that off. The minute I pay that off, I'm getting a confidence boost. When I get a confidence boost, now I know I can attack my finances. I have the confidence to go to step 2, which is to kill off my second largest debt. You keep doing this until you finish off all your debts, including, if you want, even your house payments. A lot of people have done this and they've paid off massive amounts of debt because it's very motivational and it really motivates you to keep going, and you feel like you had a win, you can celebrate a little bit, and then yes, you get another win, you can celebrate. The great thing about this and why it's called a snowball method is because the amount of money that you set aside to pay off one of the smallest debts first, after you pay it off, you'll have some extra money left over. The money that you used to use to pay off that debt, including the minimum payments. Now you use that extra money to pay off the second largest debt. Now remember, this entire time when you're paying off the first debt, you're still paying off the minimum payments on the other debts because we don't want to not pay off the minimum payments, right? Because compound interest. So the second method is called the avalanche method. And this method is if you're like me. You're really motivated paying off your debts. You don't care how you do it, you know you're going to do it. And you're also very mad at the fact that you're paying so much money in interest. You don't want to give free money away to the banks. If you're like this, then the avalanche method is perfect for you because you want to get rid of the highest interest first. I don't care about how much money I owe on each debt. I care about the interest rate. I care about the free money I'm giving to these banks. If that's what you care about, then you definitely should and probably will be very disciplined. If you're disciplined enough and you're motivated enough because of the interest payments, then you can use the avalanche method. Pay off the highest interest to the lowest interest. And this is a very fast way of using less money to pay off a lot of debt, because you're actually saving money by paying off the highest interest first. And again, like the snowball method, you're also, while you're paying off the highest interest, you're also paying off the minimum interest on your other debts, because we don't want compound interest. So what we want to do is use the money that you pay off the first interest after it's done. You're going to have a lot of money left over. Use that money to attack the second highest interest, and so on and so forth. Now, a third method is for people who don't want a lifestyle change. If you are living paycheck to paycheck and you don't want to change that lifestyle, I know it could be hard, but you don't want your life to be even harder by squeezing out extra cash, then you can use this debt recycling method. This is relatively new. Now, this is what happens. Now, for the first original month, you were paying off the minimum payments. If you keep doing that, you'll be paying it off, like I said, for 20 to 30 years. So this is where we're going to change. Instead of taking money out of your bank to pay off the minimum payments, what we're going to do is we're going to use the money to pay off all the minimum payments. And then on top of that, we're going to take your entire salary, whatever's left over, entire salary, we're going to pay off whatever debt you're trying to pay off first. It could be the highest interest, it could be the smallest amount. You're going to take your entire salary and just pay it off directly. Now, I know what you're thinking, because now you have no money left in your bank. This is what we're going to do. We're going to live off the credit card from that payment. Whatever you paid off that credit card, it's going to eat away at your principal. And when it eats away at your principal, guess what? Your monthly payment at the end will be lesser, because your principal that you owe to the bank is now lesser. So your payment is actually lesser than the month before. If you were to maintain the same way of paying it off, the principal almost will never change. It'll be decreasing little by little. But if right now you're using your entire salary to pay it off one time, what happens is you're eating a huge chunk of your principal away. Therefore, the interest based on that new principal will be lesser. Now, what happens is for the rest of the month, you're going to use that credit card to use for all of your expenses. You're going to buy groceries with that. You're going to maybe even pay off your, there's apps and stuff that you can use to pay off your rent. Okay, you can use set up payments, automatic payments through your credit cards. And when you do this, you have to be really, really disciplined. You almost cannot have an emergency. So before you start the debt recycling method, you should have an emergency fund set up, at least $1,000, because if anything happens, it'll throw you off. When it throws you off, you're going to be paying compound interest. The good thing about debt recycling method is you don't have to have a lifestyle change. You will be used to using your credit cards. So you'll be getting extra perks from your credit cards. At the same time, you are still maintaining your standard of living. Now, as time goes on, it doesn't happen fast, but as time goes on, you will be paying more and more off of your principal, and your minimum payments will be coming less and lesser and lesser. So remember to keep paying the same amount that you did before you started the debt recycling method, because this is how you keep on paying off more and more of your principal. Remember, as you throw your entire salary into that payment, your principal becomes smaller, your interest payment becomes less, your minimum payment becomes less. However, we still want to pay the same payments, because this way we can start eating away faster at the principal. Now, if you want to get more detailed into the debt recycling method, you can check out some other videos on YouTube. A lot of people talk about this specifically. They'll go through the entire chart. They'll actually write down month to month what happens when you're using the debt recycling method if you're just paying the same amounts. So now we have a plan in place. We can go on to step number 5. And step number 5 is basically just basic budgeting principles and budgeting planning. So if you can, remember to set a budget and start with the basics. You want to track your income and your expenses like we already did. And you do this, you'll figure out when you have hidden money. You'll figure out sometimes when you're doing impulsive buying. You'll buy things you don't need. And this is where you have extra hidden money that you didn't know you had. This will help you pay off your debts faster. And this is pretty obvious. If you see something you want to buy, ask yourself, do I need it or do I want it? So how do you tell if you need it or want it? So basically, this is how it works. If today you're looking at let's say a jacket, and you feel like, wow, I really want this jacket, you have to ask yourself, do I really need that jacket? Will I die if I don't have this jacket? Do I have another jacket at home? Do I need this bag? Do I have another bag to carry my things? I mean, it's just a medium for carrying stuff, right? That's what a bag is. Do I have another bag that I can use? Most of the time, our clothes and our bags and the things we have in our house will most likely last us until our end of days on earth. You can tell yourself, I am saving money, and at the same time, I'm also saving resources on earth, and I'm keeping trash away from earth. The more stuff I buy, the more trash there is. The more factories have to make more products. They think they're making money by selling this because they've sold it to you. Now they want to make more because now they can make more money, right? So you're stopping the cycle of wasting the earth's resources and keeping earth for our kids. And how do you know if you need something? So if you're out in the cold and you forgot to bring a jacket and you're freezing, you could freeze to death, or your kids are freezing, or your wife is freezing, your husband's freezing, your girlfriend's freezing, boyfriend's freezing. Ask yourself, do I need it? Yes, you do, because you might freeze, you might catch a cold, you might die from hypothermia. Then you buy it. Now you need it. So this is how I differentiate between needing and wanting. Now, number 2 is to find extra cash. How do you find extra cash? You can start canceling some of your subscriptions. You can start, switching to cheaper services. If you can find a cheaper cell phone provider, use a cheaper cell phone provider. Get cheaper insurance payments. Sell your car if you don't need your car. Take the bus, or take the bus more often and leave your car at home. You're saving on gas. You're saving on maintenance costs. Also, to find unused items in your house. If you have a storage room, if you have a garage, if you have a basement, if you have things lying around the house, if you feel like your house is too small because the stuff is taking up more space than it should, then you should probably sell some of these stuff. If you haven't used something for 6 months, for a year, you probably don't need it for the rest of your life, and you won't need it, you won't miss it. Sell it on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, sell it on Craigslist, sell it on eBay, sell it to your friends. Tell people, ask people, anybody need a microwave? Anybody need an extra oven? Anybody need my old clothes? Anybody need a winter coat? All these things can help you to have extra cash, and also to free up space and mental space, make you feel better in your living area and your living home. The next one is obvious, is to find a side hustle. If you have time, trade time for more money. If you can, deliver food, freelance, pick up a skill from YouTube. There's a lot of stuff. They teach you how to write scripts, or teach you how to thumbnails, or maybe to do something nobody wants to do, right? Find something where you can make extra money, extra cash. I had a friend, he makes really good cakes. He sold it to coworkers at his office. If you're really good at making stuff, making tamales, people like tamales, ask your friends, your colleagues, people you like, or even your kids. If you have kids, ask them if some of their kids in class want to try their mom's tamales, right? They give you the lunch money for the tamales. Figure out ways, get creative, and start making some money from your side hustles. This will help you increase your budget, help you pay off your debts faster. And the final thing is to automate payments. I don't really do this, but I think it works. A lot of people say it works. If you're somebody who your salary coming into the bank and you want to just use it, then you probably should automate it. Automate it so that when it comes in, it goes directly to your credit cards. This one goes directly to your savings for your emergency funds. After you're done with all the minimum payments for all the credit cards, whatever's left over, have that amount also automated so that it pays off first debt that you want to pay off, whatever method you're trying to use. So now that we're done with step number 5, which is setting up a budget plan and planning out your life and your finances, basically. Now the final step is the most important step, and this step could ruin everything you've done. All of your accomplishments could have gone to waste if you don't do this last step. This last step is one of the worst things. It goes down to rewarding culture. What is reward culture? Reward culture is today you feel like you've gotten a win. Today you paid off one of your debts. Today you've automated your payments. You've watched this video and you figure out all your budget. You feel like, wow, I actually have a plan now. I should reward myself. Guess what? Reward is what causes people to stay poor. The definition of reward in our culture has been skewed. What do you think about when you first think about reward? What is the first thing you think about? Expensive dinner? You think about maybe buying a nice bag or something very nice to reward yourself. The first thing we think about reward, we think about spending a lot of money buying things that we think we deserve in order to look like somebody we see on social media or somebody we see on a movie or a celebrity. What this actually does is it puts you on a treadmill that never stops. And remember, we are time limited. We are resource limited. We are willpower limited. Your brain is like a battery. You drain it by doing things. If you do this, you will have made all your hard work go to waste if you now all of a sudden reward yourself with a bag. Reward yourself with an expensive dinner. There are other ways of rewarding yourself. It doesn't always have to be through retail purchases of luxury goods or buying expensive dinners. Reward yourself by going on a picnic with your family, with your loved ones. Reward yourself by having alone time to yourself, by going on a run, by going to the beach. Reward doesn't have to be expensive. If you tell your mind, this is my reward, your mind will enjoy it. And when it enjoys it, it'll keep doing the thing that you were trying to do that was really hard. In our case, paying off our debts. So reward, don't let that keep you in the poorhouse. It's a deadly cycle that people keep on going back to, and that's why they never get out of debt again. This goes on to the next thing that could also destroy all of your hard work completely, and that is to track your progress. You want to see where you were and where you are now. To see this growth process is addicting. This also motivates you to continue. So what you want to do is, again, I use pen and paper. I write down where I was, where the debt was, how much I got rid of. I just cross it out, and to me, that is tracking my progress. And the other thing you should do is you should hold yourself accountable by having partners that are also part of this. This includes joining communities like Reddit. I do this with my wife. So me and my wife, we keep each other accountable. Before, I used to be fighting about money, but after we had a plan, after we actually sat down and changed the way we think about this, we stopped blaming each other and stopped blaming our parents or our jobs, our current situation. We took things more serious and more like adults, and we actually communicate more constructively now. So we now motivate each other and we keep each other on track. Every beginning of the month, when our salary comes into our bank accounts, we sit down and we start talking about the expenses, what we did last month, what we got rid of, and this month, what are we going to tackle now? So I think this is a great thing, and it helps to bring people closer, in my case, with my wife. And now, final thing to stop you from destroying everything you've done, all your hard work, is to remember the end goal. What is the end goal? The end goal is being free from the pain of debts. And that is pleasure. True pleasure is being free from the pain of debts, from the pain of suffering, from the pain of being not free and bound in slavery to your debts, to your job for the rest of your life. So know that at the end of the road, when you're done with all this, what you really have accomplished is not just paying off your debts. What you're really doing, and this is the secret that I'm going to tell you at the end of the video, is you're actually training yourself to have generational wealth. You're going to pass on whatever you learned here, whatever that you've practiced and you've gained from your own personal experience beyond what I'm sharing with you right now, and you're going to pass that on to your kids. Your kids are going to see it because you are a role model. And this role modeling is more than what you teach and what you preach. They actually learn more from what they see and how you handle your finances. They'll see you go to the shopping malls and they'll see you say, do I need it or do I want it? And they'll see you do that. They'll see you automate payments. They'll see you sit down with your wife, with your family, talking about your financial situation, about what we're going to do next month. They'll see you how you plan for your future. And this is generational wealth. This is what my parents never taught me, but this is what my kids will learn from me. So this is why most people who get out of debt will also find ways to become financially free much earlier and much faster. If you are living in a country where you feel like there's just no way for you to get out of your current situation, then I suggest you watch this video next. This video talks about how I grew up in Taiwan, then I went to the United States. I wasn't able to survive there financially, so I came back to Taiwan, and because I did that, I'm able to gain financial freedom, and I want to share that with you. So watch this video, see the steps you have to take in order to gain your financial freedom by moving abroad. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.